He's the best teenager I've ever seen in the NBA.
But to see a teenager play this well is incredible, man. Plain and simple.
Most teams want more than one on the court at one time. The Mavs would be lucky if they have one or two.
A year ago, this franchise was the biggest joke in basketball. A punchline in every group chat, every podcast, every late-night rant. They traded away a top 5 player on the planet and got almost nothing back for it. Their coach got fired, their franchise guard tore his ACL, they finished with one of the worst records in the league. Executives lost their jobs, fans burned jerseys in the streets. Nobody wanted to touch this roster. Nobody believed in this front office anymore. And then, in complete silence, everything changed. A lottery ball bounced their way. A legendary executive walked through the door. A teenager arrived who plays like he has been in this league for a decade already. And on one quiet Sunday morning, this team pulled off a heist nobody saw coming. This is not a comeback story. This is a complete reconstruction, brick by brick, starting with the worst season of their lives.
And the only one is taking that last spot and the other is let go, or do you think one gets signed to the active roster? So this is where the Mavericks are with their two-way spots.
Rewind to last season. This franchise hit rock bottom in front of the entire basketball world. Their general manager was fired after a brutal start, just 3 wins in the first 11 games of the year. Their franchise point guard went down with a torn ACL in early March, ending his season and stealing away any hope of a late push toward the playoffs. By the time it was all over, they had lost 56 games. 56, one of the ugliest numbers in franchise history, and enough to leave them just 4 losses shy of the worst record in the entire conference. There was no direction, no clear plan, no face of the franchise anyone could point to and say, this is our guy, this is who we build around. The fan base was furious, and honestly, they had every right to be. This wasn't just a bad season, it was the direct aftershock of a trade that had rocked the entire league months earlier. A trade that sent away a top 5 talent to a rival franchise and left this roster gutted, aging, and completely lost without an identity. The old regime that made that call didn't even survive to see the season end. They were gone by November, and the organization spent the rest of the year stuck in limbo, unsure of who they even were anymore or where they were heading. But buried deep inside that disaster was a silver lining nobody expected to find. Losing that many games meant one thing, a real, legitimate shot at the draft lottery. And when the ping-pong balls finally dropped in their favor, this front office caught the one break it desperately needed, a break that would completely change the trajectory of the entire franchise going forward.
And the story of Cooper Flagg is, that's the best basketball player at 17 I think I've ever seen.
They won the lottery and landed the most complete teenage prospect this league had seen arrive since LeBron James first walked through an NBA door. And what this kid did in his very first professional season wasn't just good. It was historic, plain and simple. He averaged 21 points, close to 7 rebounds, and 4.5 assists a night. He played and started every single game of the season, all 82 of them, on a roster that had almost nothing else going for it around him. He led his entire team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals in the same season, something no rookie had pulled off since a guy named Michael Jordan managed it decades earlier. He became the youngest player in the history of this league to score 50 points in a single game, dropping 51 points at just 19 years old on a losing team with barely any real scoring help surrounding him on the floor. Think about the legends who never even managed that feat at his exact age. Not LeBron, not Kobe, not Durant. He did it before any of them. He also became the second youngest Rookie of the Year winner this league has ever crowned, trailing only LeBron himself in that category. Analysts quickly stopped comparing him to average rookies and started comparing him instead to Larry Bird, to prime Michael Jordan, to franchise-altering superstar trajectories nobody expected this early. And the scary part is, the raw stats weren't even the most impressive thing about him. It was the composure, the poise. A 19-year-old playing like a 10-year veteran, never rattled, never rushed, always in complete control of the chaos unfolding around him every single night. This wasn't a lottery ticket that simply got lucky. This was a franchise cornerstone landing in exactly the right place at exactly the right time in history.
Man, there's guys that can do things with the ball, but we're one Flagg or Kyrie injury away from looking at this roster and being like, oh, there's just not enough guys that do things with the ball, and too many play finishers and not enough.
While that teenager was carrying an entire franchise on his back night after night, one of the most gifted scorers in modern basketball was forced to watch every single game from the sideline in street clothes. A 9-time All-Star, a legendary shot creator and ball handler, sat through an entire season rehabbing a torn ACL, the first time in over 15 years he had missed a full year of the sport he built his entire life around. But here's what people conveniently forget when they write him off. Right before the injury hit, he was playing some of the best basketball of his entire career. Nearly 25 points a night, shooting over 40% from beyond the arc, and better than 90% from the free throw line. A combination almost nobody in league history reaches even once, let alone for a fifth separate time across one career. Only one active superstar has pulled off that exact statistical combination more often than him in the modern era. And the win-loss record with him on the floor versus without him tells the entire story on its own, no analysis required. 75 wins and 53 losses when he plays. 42 wins and 75 losses when he doesn't. That is not a small sample coincidence buried in the numbers. That is the difference between a genuinely competitive team and a lottery team wearing the exact same jersey on the exact same nights. Which is exactly why, despite constant outside trade rumors and rival executives testing the waters all offseason long, the front office made one thing crystal clear from day one: he is not going anywhere. He is not a trade ship to be dangled for future assets. He is the bridge connecting this era to the next one. The 34-year-old veteran with something left to prove to the entire league, whose entire job now is to hand the keys over to the teenager the moment they finally share the floor together for a full, healthy season. Picture that pairing on the court, and it makes even more sense. One thrives creating in isolation, working late clock possessions, pulling up from anywhere. The other is a two-way engine who can defend multiple positions and score at every level. Two completely different weapons demanding two completely different answers from every opponent.
They have 3 total two-way spots that they can use on usually younger guys that can, play 50-something games in the NBA. They can play as many G League games they want. They go back and forth. They're development guys that you want to kind of hang on to, develop, and then maybe they become super important to you. Like the last 2 years, the Mavs have used up all the games of their guys with guys like Kessler Edwards and Kai Jones and, different players like that. And then Brandon Williams becomes like a rostered player, and that one worked out pretty well for the Dallas Mavericks last year.
Then came the Sunday morning nobody in the basketball world saw coming at all. A 3-team blockbuster dropped out of nowhere on social media, and when the dust finally settled, this front office had pulled off one of the sneakiest heists of the entire offseason. They landed a former #1 overall pick, a 21-year-old 6'10" wing who had once been compared to some of the most promising international prospects to ever enter professional basketball. A player who was reportedly shooting over 50% from 3 in top-level European competition before he was even drafted into the league. And the price they paid for all of that upside? A backup point guard and a distant, heavily protected second-round pick. That's the entire cost. No first-round capital changed hands in the deal. No real core piece was sacrificed to make it happen. Just pure long-term value pulled directly out of thin air, using a trade exception that almost nobody outside the front office was even paying attention to. Now, let's be completely honest about where this player actually stands right now, because the hype train alone doesn't tell the full, honest story. His scoring dipped hard in year 2 of his career, falling under 10 points a game on a shrinking role. His playing time shrank fast under a coaching staff that had quietly already given up on developing him any further. But he is still only 21 years old with just 2 full seasons of NBA basketball on his resume so far, and he is walking straight into a completely different situation now. A young superstar who creates gravity and forces defenses to collapse on almost every single possession. A veteran floor general whose pick-and-roll reads generate open look after open look for shooters spotted up in the corner. A head coach with an already proven track record of unlocking raw, unfinished talent and turning it into something real and sustainable. This wasn't just a trade for the sake of making noise. It was a calculated bet on upside at almost zero downside risk, and it gave this roster something almost no other team in the entire league can honestly claim right now. 3 former #1 overall picks on the exact same roster at the exact same time, built with real intention instead of pure desperation. That detail is not just fun trivia, it reflects a philosophy shift inside the building, a front office deliberately collecting high-ceiling talent at bargain prices and betting on patient development instead of chasing quick fixes to save face publicly. So what does next season actually look like once all these pieces are finally healthy and sharing the floor together for the very first time? A veteran creator running the point, feeding a young superstar who is about to take the leap into legitimate all-star territory this coming year. A 21-year-old sharpshooter finally learning the league inside a system that was actually built to use his exact gifts correctly, unlike where he came from. Around that trio sits a supporting cast that isn't flashy on social media, but quietly does every single unglamorous thing right night after night. A rim-running big man who can finish anything thrown above the basket if he can finally stay healthy for a full season. A two-way forward locked into a long-term deal who can guard multiple positions without ever needing the ball to be effective. A sharpshooting veteran on the final audition of a legendary career, still capable of knocking down catch-and-shoot threes when the spacing around him actually works. A freshly drafted big man with a massive wingspan and a motor that never shuts off. A smooth international guard whose game draws flattering comparisons to the very superstar this rebuild started with. And leading the whole operation from the sideline, a head coach pulled straight from the college ranks specifically because he has already proven at multiple different programs that he can bend an entire system around whatever talent walks through his door. This is not a championship roster today, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling you a complete fantasy. There are real, legitimate questions about backcourt depth, about age finally catching up to the veteran, about whether he comes back from a serious injury at full strength after 18 long months away from real competitive basketball. But a year ago, this organization had no direction, no identity, and absolutely no clear plan for the future ahead of it. Now they know exactly who they are. They know their timeline, they know their franchise player, they know their bridge to the future, they know their calculated bet on long-term upside. This franchise went from the most chaotic story in all of professional basketball to one of the most deliberately built rebuilds anyone has seen in years, and they somehow pulled it off in a single calendar year. The blueprint is finally visible for everyone to see, and for the first time since the disaster that started all of this, there is a real, legitimate reason to believe something genuinely special is quietly being constructed behind the scenes. If the young superstar keeps developing at this pace, he is not just making an all-star team next season, he is entering MVP conversations within a few short years. If the veteran comes back close to his old self, this becomes a legitimate playoff team in one of the toughest conferences in basketball. And if the new wing simply becomes a reliable starter next to two players who already demand constant defensive attention, this front office wins the trade regardless of anything else that happens around him. Every great story in this league starts the same way, at the bottom, in the wreckage, when nobody believes anymore. This franchise lived through every part of that nightmare. They lost their superstar, their coach, their direction, and almost their entire identity in one brutal, humiliating season. But out of that disaster rose a teenager built like a 10-year veteran, a legendary executive who finally brought calm to total chaos, and a roster quietly stacked with more upside than anyone outside the building gave them credit for. The rebuild is far from finished. The questions are not all answered yet, but the foundation is real, and it is only getting stronger with every move this front office makes. This is a franchise that absolutely refused to stay broken. Keep watching, because this story is only just getting started, and you do not want to miss what happens next. Hit subscribe right now, because we are only just getting warmed up on this rebuild.